We'll start with our motivation. And again, that verse I was talking about the other day, we think that we cherish ourselves so much, and the Buddhists cherish others, and yet look at the difference between us, because even though we cherish ourselves, we're completely miserable. And although the Buddhas cherish others more than themselves, they experience supreme delight. So that's really telling us something, isn't it? So with that kind of awareness of what really brings happiness and what brings suffering, then let's try and exchange ourselves with others. In other words, who we think is most important, whose happiness matters first, to really think of all other living beings and not our own self-pity self. And so to generate a motivation that, because we genuinely care for others, wants to completely eliminate our obscurations, become fully awakened, so we can have the capabilities to be of the greatest benefit. And so with that motivation, to listen to the teachings so we can learn how to do it.
Only organizers can be heard.
Okay, so yesterday I was telling you about that one inmate who was so bummed out by the psychologist's report, and then when he went to the day room, he just really listened to somebody else and with his heart, and how that completely transformed his mind. So he wrote me a little bit more. I thought this part I would read to you. Yeah, because I had closed with when he said, you know, I was completely transformed from pain to love, and I had the thought that if this is what a bodhisattva is all about, then sign me up. Okay, but then since then, whenever he tried to recreate the feeling, he couldn't do it. Okay, so then he said, because they do NVC at his prison, so he said, I went to an NVC workshop a month ago or so, not long after it, not long after it started. He doesn't put periods in, so I can't always tell where sentences begin and end. My intention for the workshop was to be completely present for someone, and even everyone else. I decided not to talk a whole lot, but to listen. And when I talk, it was only to contribute to the group. So I thought, wow, that's really something to have that determination before you go in. You know, I'm not going to talk a lot. I'm really going to listen, and I'm going to check that what I say is going to contribute in a constructive way. Because most of us, you know, it's like, give me the chance to talk, and I'll talk, and I'll talk all day, and I'll talk all night about myself, and I don't care if you're really interested or not. And, you know, if I want to say something, if it interests me, I'm going to say it. It doesn't matter about you. Yeah, but he was making completely the different intention. So he said, when someone was talking, I didn't think of what to say. I hung on to every word of the person who was speaking, and then all of a sudden I was experiencing that same complete openness. I was vulnerable, but I didn't care. I wanted everyone's pain or happiness. When I did talk, it was concise, and it was like someone else was speaking it. I also noticed that people could try to push my buttons, but I didn't get triggered. Yeah? That's quite something, isn't it? You know, when you're completely focused on others' well-being, then even if they're doing things that normally you would be so sensitive about and, you know, prickly about, and your buttons get pushed, it's like, no, my buttons are, they're not getting pushed. They're just there, you know. People can say what they want, do what they want. My mind's stable because, you know, he was completely immersed in trying to be a benefit to somebody else. So this experience has been happening at work too. If I feel sad or down, I'll put away somebody's lunch tray and do it in a way that seemed like he was giving me a gift, but I did it to help him. And this is like so much like a bodhisattva, isn't it? You know, by telling me that you need something, you're letting me create merit and give something, you know. So I was thinking of how they say that when a bodhisattva hears, help me or give me something, just hearing those words, they experience so much delight. Yeah. So that's the way he was. You know, usually, I don't know about you, but I hear help me or give me something, and it's like, oh God, what do they want from me now? You know? And then here's the bodhisattva, completely the opposite feeling, you know, feeling so much delight. And what I have been doing is spreading too. It's influencing others to want to help others. In the past, if I felt good and one person was rude or unkind, I would change into being rude or unkind. Sound familiar? I'm doing fine, somebody else is rude or unkind. Back to them, right? Yeah, and then feeling down, feeling depressed, feeling angry ourselves afterwards. But he said, but it's just the opposite now. I'm the light and the darkness. I'm the light in the darkness, and I'm influencing others. I am not like this all the time, only when I make the conscious decision to forget all my troubles and be completely present for someone else, and only if my intentions are pure. I must have that altruistic intention and become selfless. I must sacrifice my time and attention in order to receive. Isn't that lovely? You know? And he's talking from his experience, not kind of la-la philosophy, but from what he was actually able to do. And I think he's absolutely right, you know, that we only have that kind of experience when our intentions are completely pure. You know, when we're trying to be a good guy and hope other people are going to notice it, when we're trying to please somebody so that they'll like us and tell other people how wonderful we are, we don't have that same feeling of openness and connection. You know, it's only when we completely set ourselves aside and we're really present for the other person and not thinking of what am I going to get out of it. Or what can I get out of it? Or how am I going to look? Or how are they treating me? Or do I deserve this? You know, when we just leave all of that stuff aside, then that's when this happens. Yeah. So we have some pretty thick habits in the self-centered direction, don't we? Yeah, some pretty ingrown habits. So it's going to take us a while to overcome them, but if we really do it consistently and work at it, you know, as Shantideva says, there's nothing that doesn't get easier with practice. Actually, that's what our parents told us when we were kids, isn't it? Yeah, just practice it, it won't be so hard later. But I can't type, I'm never going to be able to type. I can't hit the ball. Everybody's better than me. Yeah, you remember that? Or maybe you were the ones who could type and could hit the ball. Okay, so very good for us to remember to have this kind of sincere motivation. Okay, so we'll continue. If I can get through all my piles of paper here. We left off with verse 188 last time.
187.
We finished 187, didn't we? Yeah, so we're on 188. Okay, so this verse talks about the appropriateness of striving for liberation because of the great disadvantages of samsara. Okay, so, he's been going through this for 7.5 chapters already, this same thing. Yeah, and here he is, the same topic again. Why? Yes, we're very thick-skulled. Okay. I remember one time I was reading, somebody sent me a copy of a transcript from one of my teachers, yeah, and I had, been studying with this teacher since 1975, and this was, I don't know what year it was that I received this, and I was reading the transcript, and I was going, wow, this sounds exactly like, one of my first courses that I attended. He's saying the same thing. And then I thought, yeah. Why is he saying the same thing? Because I haven't gotten it yet. Yeah. So that's what Aryadeva's doing. Okay. So this verse says, one sees that some who are overwhelmed by suffering long for death, yet entirely due to their confusion, they will not reach the excellent state. The excellent state refers to nirvana, the absence of suffering. Okay, so here it's talking about when we see people who are overwhelmed by suffering and they long for death. Yeah, we may have met people like that. People, the whole euthanasia movement, sometimes people have so much physical suffering that they long for death, or people who have mental suffering long for death, or their lives are completely falling apart, and they kind of think, well, death is my salvation, it'll remove me from this horrible situation. So there's suffering because they lack what they want, or they're separated from what they like, or whatever. But the point is, okay, they're overwhelmed by suffering, but long for death. Yet entirely due to their confusion, they will not reach the excellent state. So what he's getting at here is you may long for death, and you may even kill yourself, but that doesn't eliminate the suffering. Yeah, because we only get reborn. And when you think of dying with the kind of a very suffering mental state or negative mental state that somebody has if they commit suicide, then, that mental state is not going to bring a good rebirth, is it? It's going to bring a continuation of what was there before, most likely. So, what these people have, when we talk about the Four Noble Truths, the first noble truth, that there is dukkha, there are unsatisfactory conditions. So these people understand that, and when we talk about the three kinds of dukkha, the dukkha of pain, the dukkha of change, and then the dukkha of pervasive conditioning. They get that first one, the dukkha of pain. But so do animals. Nobody wants to suffer from very gross physical or mental things. But So they understand that. But what are they missing?
The best third and the origin, second, third.
They're missing the second, third, and fourth noble truth. And they're also missing part of the first, because they've only want to renounce the pain of suffering of this life. They don't want to renounce the unsatisfactoriness of change or the unsatisfactoriness of pervasive conditioning. Yeah, they want the quick fix of being happy now. They don't know the causes of their misery. They think the causes of their misery are external to them. Life isn't fair, or somebody else hurt me, or who knows what it is. So they don't understand what the origin of their misery is. They understand misery. They don't know what the origin is. And so they don't know how to go about eliminating what the origin is, because if you don't know what it is, you can't eliminate it. And so then they don't know how to arrive at the true cessation either. Okay, so this is, why we have to really think about all four noble truths. And, and the awareness that we have of gross suffering as Buddhists is a different kind of awareness than ordinary people have of gross suffering. Yeah, because just look at your own mind, how did you see gross suffering before you heard about the Four Noble Truths? It's like, I don't want this, I don't deserve it, get it away, But then when you have the whole complement of the Four Noble Truths, first of all, you see, this is kind of part of the nature of samsara. There's nothing unusual about it. One. Second of all, the cause comes from my own mental afflictions and my own actions. There's nobody else to blame. Yeah. And, the path is to realize how things really exist. So I stop having all these mental afflictions and stop acting out of the mental afflictions, and then I'll arrive at a real state of peace. And a real state of peace is not permanent Disneyland. That's what ordinary people think the ultimate happiness in their life is, ultimate Disneyland. Yeah.
That's hell.
Yeah. Can you imagine going the Matterhorn all day? Yeah, or even on a Ferris wheel all day, or eating cotton candy all day,
Listening to that music blasted over the PA
system all day, or having Mickey Mouse come up and tickle you all day. Oh, give me a break. Yeah.
That's why he became a young adult. He said that was genuinely the idea of heaven that he had grown up with.
Yeah.
His family would be in Disney, and entire family would be at Disneyland.
Right. Okay. So somebody, the young adult, he said, that was the idea of heaven that he grew up with, that the entire family would be at Disneyland all the time. Oh my God. Please no. Okay? But that's the most that people can think of when they don't understand all Four Noble Truths. Okay? Also, in this verse, it talks about the people who are overwhelmed by suffering. So we usually think, the people who are poor, the people who are sick, the people's relationships are broken up, and so on. They have compassion. They may long for death because of their suffering. But when we look at the suicide rate, is it among poor people? No. Yeah. When we look at people who OD on drugs, is it poor the highest percentage poor people? No. Yeah. So what we so often ignore is that people who are rich and famous and so on have incredible suffering. There was just some famous movie star who OD'd on heroin. They found him in the bathroom. The needle was still in his vein. Some very famous movie star. Yeah. So, we often don't think of the suffering of people who have, quote, quote, good conditions in samsara. Yeah. But often these people, in spite of their good conditions, have mental pain that is beyond belief. Yeah. So not to keep our compassion just for poor people, but see it also for the rich and the famous. I mean, yeah. Okay, so because of all these people, their confusion about what to practice and what to abandon, then they never reach full awakening. Yeah, so you hear this expression a lot, what to practice, what to abandon. Okay, so that's exactly what we have to learn. What do we have to practice and develop in our mind to go towards enlightenment? What do we have to abandon in terms of mental attitudes and actions and so forth? Yeah, so that's basically what the practice is, what to practice, what to abandon. Okay, so without taking the medicine, you won't get cured. Duh. But when we have a problem, do we know what medicine to take? We may study the Dharma, have notebooks full of notes, but when we get upset, do we know how to deal with our own mind?
But we don't carry our notebook.
You can put it, you can't carry your note, you put it all on your iPhone. Yeah, what to do when I'm depressed, what to do when somebody criticizes me, what to do here. Yeah? What do you think?
There's an app for that.
Oh, yeah. Is there an app for that?
Probably.
Oh, yeah. Oh, otherwise we can make one, okay? Yeah.
No projects until March.
But this isn't a new project.
It's old.
Okay. Yeah. So, we really have to remember the antidotes and put them into practice. Yeah. Having them written down somewhere is nice, but it doesn't do anything. Yeah. When we really need them, we have to remember what to do and then to do it. Yeah. Okay. Then verse 189 is about the meaning of the fundamental mode of existence should not be taught from the outset. In other words, that we shouldn't teach emptiness right from the beginning. Okay, so Joe Blow, here he is again. So he's taking on from the last verse when, we said those people won't attain liberation. He says, if you seek liberation, then advice only on meditation on emptiness would be appropriate. Yeah, because meditation on emptiness is what counteracts the ignorance that's the root of samsara. So, why did the Buddha also give advice on generosity, ethical conduct, fortitude? It's like he's saying if meditating on suchness or emptiness is the key, why are you telling me to be a good person and share what I have and to be generous? It's like, God, I don't want to do that. I've been hearing that my whole life. Why are you telling me about ethical conduct? This sounds like Sunday school. if I want to lie, I'm going to lie. You know, why are you telling me the same old stuff since I was a little kid? You know, don't kill, don't steal, don't sleep around, don't lie. You know, don't criticize other people, don't create disharmony, don't gossip, don't this, don't that. Why are you teaching me all these don'ts? Ugh. What kind of exotic spiritual practice is that? Yeah, there's a lot of people who have this attitude. Yeah? It's like, you know, that's simplistic stuff that, you know even in preschool. So why are you emphasizing that? Give me that good stuff. I want to hear about emptiness. You know? Yeah, or teach me tantra. You know? I want the high stuff. Yeah. So why is Buddha, you know, teaching generosity, ethical conduct? Yeah. I had that thick skull again. Yeah. We still aren't doing it, are we? Yeah. We still aren't doing it. We're so resistant. Yeah. I mean, even that attitude of, you know, that's just like little kids' teachings. I mean, even that attitude shows how completely ignorant we are. Mm-hmm. And instead of taking ethical conduct as something really serious, we just kind of shine it on. You know, as long as nobody knows and they don't get caught, doesn't matter. Yeah? That's what I used to think. So, yeah? Okay, so Joe Blow's asking this question. So Aryadeva says, giving is taught to the lowest, and ethics to the middling. Pacification is taught to the best. Therefore, always do the best. So what he's saying is that you must lead people gradually. You can't give people the teachings on emptiness and expect them to understand it and have the power of mind to put it into practice when their minds are completely weak and uncultivated. Yeah, when you think about it, you know. Yeah, I remember I was in a class once, and one of the fellow students was saying, you know, why do we have to learn, you know, like about the four establishments of mindfulness, about the body being foul and feelings being the nature of unsatisfactory and so. You know, I don't think that my body's foul, but I sure want to learn emptiness. Yeah, teach me emptiness, but why are you teaching me this stuff about my body is disgusting? My body's fine. Yeah? That's just old kind of guilt-tripping sex is bad message. Huh? That's what he was saying. And I thought, oh, now I understand. You know, sometimes you understand some of the teachings when you hear somebody say something. It's like, you know, if somebody's not a proper vehicle, you can give them the teachings on emptiness, but there's no way they're going to get it. Because unless he has the strength of mind to look at his own body and see it for what it is, how is he going to have the strength of mind to really see that there's no personal identity as he thinks there is, that he's been living his whole life circling around? Okay? So the Buddha's advice on generosity, it says giving is taught to the lowest. So for people when they're just starting out, that's what the Buddha teaches. Be generous. Yeah, and generosity is, you know, a virtue that's people appreciate in the world. They don't always do it, but they appreciate it. Okay, and so we're taught to be generous is the first thing in our Dharma practice. And yet when we look, it's hard to be generous, isn't it? Yeah, to give, you know, a material possession. Sometimes we can't even give stuff that we don't even use, that we haven't looked at for so long that we don't even know we have. But when we go to clean out the drawer and see that we have it, we can't give it away. Yeah, how we save stuff that we're never going to use, we can't bear to separate from it. Yeah? amazing, isn't it? Or even a relative dies, we don't want to give their stuff away. They aren't there, so we want to keep all their clothes, all their shoes, everything, as if to pretend in our own mind that they're still there. Yeah. Whereas it's really going to benefit the other person if we can give their stuff away, like to a charity or so on, and then dedicate the merit for their welfare. Yeah, so even the primary practice of giving is difficult for us. Then he says, an ethics to the middling. So once you have some stability in giving, then they teach you ethics to refrain from doing what is, harmful to self and others. And that's really hard, isn't it? Even though our parents started teaching us that when we were little. Yeah, don't throw things at your brother and sister. They don't like it. It hurts them. Yeah, I mean, our parents taught us that. But he's doing this, so I'm going to throw it. Yeah. So now, of course, we're a little bit more refined. Yeah, we don't, well, some people still do throw things.
We do it under the table.
Yeah.
We throw insults.
We throw things all the time. Oh, should I tell this story?
Yes.
Okay, I hope none of my relatives are listening. They don't listen to the Dharma. One time, my dad used to have a group of guys that he played cards with, and they all played cards at different people's house each week. And so one night they were playing it at our house, and when I went to breakfast the next morning, the wallpaper, was like something was wrong with that. And I asked what happened. And I don't know what this guy said, but my mom threw a piece of cake at him. Don't you dare throw anything in Chenrezig Hall. It's new.
Throw it in here.
Yeah, if you're going to throw something in here, okay. but not where there's a Buddha picture behind. Okay. Yeah. But we can see. I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Sometimes we get so mad at somebody, we go out and we just scream, or we punch something, or who knows what. Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to keep good ethical discipline. Yet that's, the next thing after giving. So to really do that. Then, we teach meditation. And that's when it says pacification is taught to be the best. So that means meditation, and in this context specifically meditation on emptiness. Pacification is making the mind peaceful through getting rid of the self-grasping ignorance. Okay, so so those with the best ability are principally instructed in meditation on suchness, the means to pacify samsara. Okay, but everybody must be taught gradually, and we all have to practice at the level that we're at. Yeah, so that's why I really tell people, go slowly, don't jump in to take a lot of tantric initiations and things like that. Really practice at the level where you're at. Yeah, until your mind is strong enough to really handle different things. Okay, so then he also says, one person must be taught everything gradually. Thus, we should always endeavor to do our best and think, why shouldn't I attain liberation? Now that's interesting. Do we ever ask ourselves that? Do we ever say, why shouldn't I attain liberation? Or do we say, how in the world can I attain liberation? Yeah, the way we ask the question, we automatically discourage ourselves. Why not say, you know, if the teachings are there, and I have the potential, you know, and the conditions to listen to them and put them into practice, why shouldn't I attain liberation?
When we don't believe that we can attain it, does it blocks us?
Yeah, what do you think? When you don't think you can attain something, yeah, of course it blocks you. Of course it blocks you. When we don't think we can do something, we're never going to try to do it. Yeah. And you can see this in ordinary life. I always tell the story about little Tyrone, one of my students when I was a teacher. And Tyrone thought he couldn't read because he thought he was stupid, you know. And as a result, he couldn't read because he thought that. But Tyrone was not stupid. And I knew that if he could get over that mental thing, that yes, he could learn to read. Yeah. So you see it in kids and adults, you know. We're so self-sabotaging, saying, I can't do this, I can't do that. No way, that's too hard.
Don't look at me.
Okay, now the next verse is talking about the stages on you know, how to lead somebody on the path to liberation. This verse is one, you know, we've been hitting every so often one of the really famous verses in Aryadeva that are quoted in so many other texts. This is one of them, verse 190 here. Okay, so His Holiness teaches it a lot, actually. In fact, in the teachings we were just in India, he brought it up. Okay, so the verse goes, first prevent the demeritorious, next prevent, in parentheses, ideas of a coarse self. Later prevent views of all kinds. Whoever knows of this is wise. Okay, so there he's laying out the path. First, prevent the demeritorious. Second, prevent notions of a self-sufficient, substantially existent self. Third, prevent views of all kinds, especially the view of inherent existence. And whoever knows this is wise. So there he's laying out the path for you, you know, how to progress. So the first one, first prevent the demeritorious, is all about ethical conduct. There it comes again. Yeah, ethical conduct comes up everywhere. Yeah. And if you don't like the term ethical conduct or the term morality, think of it as getting your act together. Because I think that's basically what ethical conduct is getting your act together. Yeah? Because when we don't act ethically, you know, we're not very together people, are we? You know, we don't have our act together and we're very busy creating a mess. It's true, isn't it? Yeah. Sometimes we read in the newspaper all these people, you know, doing all sorts of stuff, and we think, you know, they have such good conditions in their life. Why can't they get it together and, you know, just use the good conditions they have? Yeah, well, because they're not practicing ethical conduct. So that's why I say ethical conduct is getting yourself together, getting your life together. Okay? Or put it another way, stop being a jerk. Okay, so so first we teach other people and we learn ourselves about virtue and non-virtue, you know, what to practice that's virtuous, what to abandon that's non-virtuous, because that is comparatively easy to understand. Okay, that's the first step. And in the 3 higher trainings, what's the first one? Ethical conduct. Okay, it's your name, isn't it? And, you know, when we study the paramitas, ethical conduct's in there too. Yeah? So it's all over the place. Then the second, you know, he says, next prevent self. So the way His Holiness interprets this is, next prevent grasping onto a self-sufficient, substantially existent self. Okay? So this is a coarse self that we're grasping at. Yeah, so it's a coarse kind of ignorance that's grasping, or a coarse jigta. Remember, jigta is the view of the transitory collections, that mental factor. It
sounds like
yeah, it is a mental factory, isn't it? Churning out lots of ideas. Yeah. But it's the mental factor that apprehends ourself, you know. Well, the lower school, philosophical schools say we apprehend ourselves as a self-sufficient, substantially existent person. Prasangikas say we apprehend ourselves as an inherently existent person. Okay? So, to repudiate actually either one of those notions of self, the coarse one or the subtle one, then we do that by refuting the referent object of the 20 views of the self, 20 views of jigta, you know, the 20 kind of ways that jigta, that grasping of the transitory collection, the 20 are grasping. Another translation that is not a word-for-word translation, but I think it gets at the meaning, is grasping at a personal identity. Yeah, that's what it is. We're grasping at a personal identity. So there's 4 views for each one of our aggregates, how we, you know, may think that we exist in relationship to the aggregates. And our mind is so unstable, so fickle, that we will go back and forth between these 4 views for each of the aggregates. So there's 5 aggregates, 4 views, that's 20. Okay, so 20 views of a personal identity. Okay, so they are, okay, the first one is, here, when it says form, it means the body. So we might as well say the body. So seeing the self is the body, or seeing that the body is the self. Yeah. So sometimes we feel that way, don't we? I am my body. Yeah. My body's going to die. I'm going to die. Yeah. Something like that. Second one is that the self, here I'm going to use inherently, you know, because we'll here, I mean, in the second step we're really talking about self-sufficient, substantially existent, but I'm going to just go ahead and teach it according to Prasangika anyway. So the self inherently possesses the body. Okay, so here the self is a possessor of the body, but it has this, it's an inherent possessor. Yeah, it can't be separated from the body in any kind of way. And this relationship, the way in which the self possesses the body, doesn't depend on any other factor. Yeah, it comes from its own side. It's there as a part of an inherent nature. Third one is the self inherently exists in the body. So there's the idea of the body, and the self inherently exists in the body. You know, again, not because of causes and conditions or something or anything like that, but there's some real self that's there inside the body. And the fourth one is that the body inherently exists in the self, kind of like the idea that there's a big self and the body is part of it. Okay, so those four are talking about ways in which the self and the body are related to each other. Okay, there's another one that isn't directly mentioned of seeing the self, the body as totally different entities. Okay, sometimes we do that too, don't we? Yeah. Oh yeah, I don't mind if I die because I'm still going to exist. I have nothing to do with the body. I'm totally separate from the body. Okay, so that one, that fifth one, is not included in these lists of four, because that one is talking about the body and the self as being inherently separate. And the Buddha already taught in another sutra that that's not so, that, you know, if you really think about it, you can't really separate any of the aggregates from the self and see them as totally different entities. Okay, and also because they say that that's a very, very coarse view, that is an acquired view. Okay, so we talk about two views of a personal identity. One is innate, in other words, it just comes with us from one life to the next. The other is acquired, and that's a view of ourself based on wrong philosophies, wrong psychologies. You know, like we're taught there's a soul, you know, this thing about the self and the body being completely different. That's very much the idea of a soul, isn't there? You know? Now, we don't instinctively, naturally, innately believe that there's a soul, but we may learn some kind of philosophy that says, yes, there's this permanent thing that is you, that is totally separate from the body. Yeah? And there's something mentally very appealing about that idea, isn't there? Yeah. Something very, oh yeah, there's a permanent me that's unchanging, that can't ever go out of existence. Yeah, that is a totally different nature of the body, so the body can die. I'm not going to be afraid. Nothing's going to happen to me. I'm going to continue on exactly the same way. Or my loved one, you know, they have this soul, so when they die, they didn't cease to exist. They're up in heaven somewhere. When I die, I'm going to go see them again. You know? So it's a view that has been acquired. We've learned it, and it can be very, very comforting to some people. So it's a very emotionally appealing view. So it's easy, you know, for people often to adhere to that kind of thing. But the Buddha said that was nobody thinks innately that the self is different from the body. That they're two totally different things. Innately, in other words, there's acquired and innate. Acquired is you learned it. But innate is, you know, even animals feel it.
Okay.
Like Maitri, do you think she thinks I'm different than my body?
No.
No. Yeah. But she definitely grasps it as self, doesn't she? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's some innate grasping there, but there's not the acquired. Whereas we human beings, we're very fancy and special, so we have both of them. Because we dream up all sorts of wrong philosophies that we believe in. Okay? But actually, they say that when you really examine deeply, that even those first four, they're also actually acquired. That none of them are innate. So I find it very interesting to look at, you know. Okay, the self is the body. Yeah, so sometimes I feel myself, you know, the self is the body. But then, if I really felt that innately, then I wouldn't also think, oh, gee, that person's so attractive, if only I could switch bodies with them. Okay? So just the fact that we can think about switching bodies with somebody shows that we don't innately think, yeah, that we are our body. Okay? Or that the self inherently possesses form. There's a self, and I possess my body. So sometimes we say, I have a body, I have an arm, or a leg, or whatever. But other times, but if that were really an innate view, then also sometimes we wouldn't automatically think I am my body. Or I am separate from my body. Okay. When we really look, we have so many screwy ideas. We go back and forth about how do we actually feel that the self relates to the body. And this is only the first of the aggregates. Okay? Or that the self inherently exists in the body. Yeah, sometimes we feel, here's the body, and there's that little homunculus somehow. You know, right? You know that one, like, existing here? We talked about it last time, that in the pituitary gland or something, cut it open, there, hi! Yeah, I mean, that's what a great idea, what a great example of an acquired view of a personal identity. You invent the idea of a homunculus. Great example, okay? Or that the form exists in the body. Yeah, the body exists, the body exists in the self. Yeah. So all these different ideas, they're all, you know, none of them are really innate. But the thing is, when we are able to see the object of the innate grasping at a personal identity, you know, that inherently existent self. If the person actually existed inherently as that view of the personal identity thinks it does, then it's something that would have to be findable under investigation. And if it were to be findable under investigation, then it would have to either be the same as the self, okay, different from the self, it would have to possess the self, or be in the self, or I mean, be in the, I'm getting myself confused here. Let me try over again. If the self were really inherently existent, okay, then it would be findable. So it would mean that I am the aggregates, okay, or I'm inside the aggregates, or the aggregates are inside me, or I possess the aggregates, or we're totally different. In other words, if we existed the way we appear to exist, to that innate self-grasping, then we would have to exist in one of these ways here that we just went through. Okay? So, I did the 4 views for the body, but maybe it might be good to go through them for the mind, for the other aggregates too. So second aggregate is feeling. Okay, so I am my feelings. Here, feelings of happiness, unhappiness, and neutral. Sometimes we feel that way, don't we? I am my feelings. I am my happiness. I am my misery. Okay, or the self inherently possesses the feelings. These are my feelings, you don't understand them. Okay, the self inherently exists in the feelings. You know, all of our feelings are there and I'm just kind of immersed in my feelings. Or the feelings inherently exist in me. Okay. Or we do it with discrimination. our discriminations, our ability to discern one object or another. I am my discernments. Yeah. It's a great one for somebody who's very proud of their intelligence. I am my discernments. You know. Or I possess all my discriminations. You know, all my abilities to distinguish different objects. Or I exist inside all of those. Or all my discriminations exist inside me. Or, of course, that fifth one, I and my discriminations are totally separate. Or we forgot that one with the feelings. Me and my feelings are totally separate. That's called dissociation. Okay. Then our volitional factors, all of our other emotions. Okay. So I'll just say emotions here, even though that's not synonymous with volitional factors. I am my emotions. Sometimes it feels like that. I am my love. I am my anger. You know. Or I possess my emotions in this inherent relationship. I can never give them up. Okay. Or I exist inside my emotions. Or my emotions exist inside me. You know, and everything's findable and inherent. Or I'm totally different than my emotions. Okay. Fifth, with our consciousness, I am my consciousness. You know, and here it means our primary consciousnesses, just the ability, the five sense consciousnesses and the mental consciousness. I am my consciousness. Okay. I inherently possess my consciousness. My consciousness exists inside me. Or I exist inside my consciousness. Or I'm totally separate from my consciousness. Yeah, I could be here and my consciousness could be somewhere else. Okay? So the thing is, if we really truly existed in this way, yeah, and if we truly existed in the way that the innate grasping at a personal identity thinks we exist, then we should be findable when we search for who exactly or what exactly is the self, and we should be able to find the self in one of those ways. It would be either one of the aggregates or different from the aggregate, or possess the aggregate, or, you know, exist inside the aggregate, or something like that, or the aggregate exists inside it. Okay? So that's how you use this reasoning. Okay? Yeah. When we look at the view of the personal identity, okay, the observed object, just the plain object that it's observing, is the mere I, the conventionally existent self. Yeah. How that conventionally existent self is appearing to that mind is inherently existent. Okay? So the conceptual appearance of an inherently existent I is the appearing object. Yeah, the conceived object is, there's different ways to put it, the I as inherently existent. Yeah. Or the inherently existent I, which doesn't exist at all. Okay? Remember when we did these different kinds of objects?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, somewhere back there. Okay, so if we, you know, really exist inherently, like we think we do or feel we do, we should be able to find what we are. Okay, the thing is that this kind of self-grasping, this view of a personal identity, how it really grasps the self as existing is very difficult to identify. Because every time you try and look and see, how do I think I exist? then your mind kind of changes, or it flips, or that self-grasping disappears. You can't really get a handle on it. Okay, it's very sneaky, yeah. But what they say is that it appears to be independent, yet blended in with the aggregates. So it doesn't appear to be entirely different, but it doesn't appear to be entirely the same either. Okay, but it appears to exist independent of everything else, but not independent in the way of, okay, I'm unrelated to my body, but independent in the sense of, you know, I exist without causes. I exist without parts. I exist without anybody conceiving or labeling me. I am just me, there, always. And don't you criticize me. Okay? So, yeah. So when Nagarjuna talks about the how to negate this I, he goes back to these 20 views, okay, and but he does it by talking about 5 points in particular. So you'll find the 20 views interspersed in them. First of all, when you're meditating, you know, you identify how that inherently exists in I appears. Then you say, if the self existed inherently the way it appears, then it would have to be either inherently one with the aggregates or inherently separate from the aggregates. There's only two ways. There's no third way. Because either two things are one or they're different. There's no third way. Okay? So then Nagarjuna in the Karikas, he sets out this 5-point refutation. So the self and the aggregates are not inherently one and the same. Okay, so that's looking at that one about I am the aggregates. Yeah, but no, I'm not inherently one and the same with the aggregates. Either the aggregate, well, any of the aggregates individually or the collection. Second is the self is not inherently different than the aggregates. Yeah, because, well, there's so many reasons. I mean, if I go into this, so we won't get anywhere more in the text. So I'm not going to go in depth, okay? But you know, if the I and the aggregates were one and the same, then there would be no reason to even posit the existence of the I, because it would be synonymous with the aggregates, which is ridiculous. Okay, if the self and the aggregates were inherently different, your body and mind could be here and you could be on the other side of the room. Okay. The third one is the self doesn't inherently depend on or exist in the aggregates. So here's the thing of the example they give is that the aggregates, the relationship of the aggregates is like a lion in the forest or a person in the tent. The aggregates, the forest or the tent, and the person is the lion roaming around inside the aggregates or walking around inside the tent. Okay, so if the self existed inherently, we should be able to maybe find it like this. But as we just went through, this is one of the wrong views. Okay, but sometimes we feel that way, don't we? Yeah, here's my body and mind, all my aggregates, and there's a self, kind of like the lion in the forest walking around in it. Okay. Okay. But another time, or another way, if we really inherently existed, then, then again, the way you think is the aggregates don't inherently depend on the self, like yogurt in a bowl, or like snow on the forest. Okay, so sometimes we have this feeling that the aggregates don't inherently depend on the self. So like the self is like the bowl, and then the aggregates are the yogurt that you put in it. Or sometimes the aggregates are like the trees, and the self is like the snow on top of them that covers all of them. Okay, so if we were inherently existent, we would have to maybe find ourselves in one of those two ways. Yeah? But do you exist that way in relationship to your aggregates? Where you're kind of the self that's kind of spread out, and then the aggregates come under you? Or you're this all-pervasive self and the aggregates plop into you? You're not going to find a self that way, are you? Okay. And then the self doesn't inherently possess the aggregates either. Okay. So again, there's only two ways of possessing: the way a person possesses their ear, or the way you possess your computer. You know, the way you possess your ear, you're one nature. The way you possess a computer, you're different natures. But again, the same thing. That's not the way you relate to the aggregates. If the self were inherently existent, it would have to be findable in one of those ways. Okay? All of those ways can actually be boiled down to two ways. It's either got to be one and the same, the aggregates and the self one and the same, or the aggregates and the self different. Okay. Chandrakirti added two other ways, which is that the self is not the shape of the aggregates, and the self is not the collection of the aggregates. But again, if the self were inherently existent, yeah, we've got to find it somewhere. Okay, so is it the owner of the aggregates? No. Is it the shape of the aggregates? No. Is it the collection of the aggregates? Maybe. Maybe I'm just the collection of the aggregates. What do you think? Why not?
Because when my body dies, what happens to that soul?
Yeah, because if you lose one of the aggregates, then, yeah, then that inherently existent self is gone.
Or at least part of it.
Yeah. Okay. Also, because a collection itself isn't one thing. So how could I, an inherently existent I, be something that is multiple? Because a collection itself is something that's multiple. Okay? So you're looking and examining, you know, if the I were inherently existent, it would have to be you'd have to find it in one of these ways. But, yeah, the self isn't inherently the same as the aggregates. It's not inherently different than the aggregates. It doesn't inherently possess the aggregates, etc., etc. Okay? So you go through all these different ways, looking and seeing how does the self exist. Because if it inherently exists, I should be able to find it in one of these 7 ways. Okay? So, anyway, let's just, that verse was, first prevent the demeritorious, next prevent the ideas of the core self. So that was describing that. But I actually talked about the inherently existent one. So that was actually the third line, later prevent views of all kinds. So that's the view of inherent existence. Yeah, but I taught it with the second one because the second one it first comes up when you're refuting a self-sufficient, substantially existent self. Because also if the self existed, self-sufficiently, substantially existent, it would either have to be one with the aggregates, separate from the aggregates, and all those things. It's the same kind of refutation, only the object of negation is different.
Can you use all of them that way? Even the Chandrakirti?
Yeah.
For the self-sufficient?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, and then also in the third one you teach, no view, when it says no views, later prevent views of all kinds. Then also that involves seeing that emptiness itself is not inherently existent. So you're preventing all extremes there. You're not grasping onto anything as solid. Okay? So we go from stage to stage as we're receptive, or if we're giving somebody instructions as they're receptive. We teach them from one step to the other. First, to abandon the demeritorious, then to give up the coarse views of self, then to give up the subtle views of the self. So it's like a skillful doctor prescribes bland or oily diet for specific patients. Okay, so which of those three teachings are you going to get? It depends on what you're suffering from at this very moment, what is actually going to be medicine for you. Because if you get the wrong medicine, then you might get sicker. Okay? Actually, when I was I'm way past, but anyway, when I was talking about the four views for the aggregates, you also find those mentioned in the Pali canon. Okay, in the middle discourses, number 44, the Kularidala Sutra, and there's it's interesting. One of the people who listens online, I guess he read ahead and saw that this was coming, because he sent me, an excerpt from some of the Pali Canon, where the Buddha, and in this case Shariputra, is talking about that. Okay. Go find yourself.
Good luck. First room on the left when you enter Chandras.
So that's actually good. What's the difference between finding yourself in the room and finding yourself in the aggregates?
Looking at the ultimate analysis.
Yeah, you can find yourself in the room, but you can't find yourself in the aggregates. Yeah?
Way back when you first started the views, one where the body, seeing the self as the body, the body as the self. That makes me think of the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, well, yeah, well, some religions too.
You never die.
Yeah.
And that you just go to sleep. So
Right.
you always have your body, and you always have yourself, and there you are.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why in many religions they bury the body, because you are your body, you're going to get resurrected in the body. Yeah.
Catholics,
But I didn't.
Yeah, Muslims, Jews, yeah, all of them like that. You are your body. You are your body, and at the same time, there's a soul that's totally separate from the body.
but they'll get together again.
Yeah, so they're going to get together in heaven.
Why couldn't we just trade in for a new body?
Yeah, Well, that's what we wind up doing, isn't it? Yeah.
I meant in their heaven, I know in ours.
Ours, okay.
Teach that. I recently had that conversation with my stepfather, and after the resurrection, God is supposed to give you a new body when you live in the new earth.
Oh, new earth too. New earth too.
And apparently, I mean, I thought it was something, just verbiage. But no, he very much believes that it will be a physical place with a physical body. I was kind of shocked, but...
Wow.
The idea in the resurrection, according to who?
Revelation, how they interpret Revelation.
Who's that?
How who? Yeah.
Reformed Presbyterian is what we grew up.
Yeah. Yeah. That you're going to get a new body in heaven, which is a physical place. And you're going to live in that new body forever.
With your relatives.
With your relatives.